Yes, Jan Lucas is already popping his LinkedIn in the chat. Feel free to do so as well and make some new facilitator friends. In the meantime, let me kill the music and welcome everyone. I hope you're all doing great this morning, midday, or evening, wherever in the world you're tuning in from. I want to do a quick thumbs up or thumbs down by using the react button on the left side of your screen. Do let me know if this is the, if you're familiar with Butter, give me a thumbs up. And if it's the first time that you're in Butter, give me a thumbs down. I'm super keen to see if there's anyone here for the first time. Yeah, I see some thumbs down. So I see some of you have never experienced Butter, then let me tell you that you're in for a treat. Welcome to Butter, and we're going to have a beautiful, beautiful event session today talking about designing virtual learning experiences. I've got a superstar panel here today with me. I'm going to introduce them to you briefly. But before I do that, I want to learn a couple of things about yourselves as well. Now, before we move on, I do want to mention that the session is being recorded. We are recording our events and we're sharing them on YouTube and with the Butter community, just to make sure that all the good conversations that we're having during our events are finding their way into the world and are helping everyone else improve their facilitation skills. And having that out of the way, I am moving on to the next prompt I have ready for you. So we have all found the chat, but did you know that we also can add GIFs in our chat? So the invitation for you is to find a GIF that represents how you feel about virtual learning experiences. And let's have a GIF waterfall, chatterfall, and see what the general feeling here is. We've got some hearts, we've got some excitement. I take that, Sabrina. I've got no idea, to be honest. There we go, Eric coming in with full honesty. Is that a challenge? Yeah, there we go. Okay, we see some excitement, time to party. Okay, so the feeling, the vibes in general, quite positive. Don't try to. Okay, keep them coming, love them. Now let's get real, and I brought in some scales for you, and let's see how divided the room is today. An offline experience is better than an online one. Do you strongly agree or do you strongly disagree? And you can just hover over the image and plot yourself somewhere there. Okay. Oh wow, so truly like the whole spectrum here. An offline experience is better than an online one. Hey, Howard is like way out there. Okay, Howard, we're going to have to hear about that in a second. Great. Let me see, Christopher. Oh, he moved. It was like, oops. He was like, I'm going to change direction here. So Christopher and Howard, a word, please. Just unmute and tell us in one sentence why this. Howard,
I was just being provocative. That was all. I mean, it would be very off-brand for me to be like here on Butter and then going, yeah, online sucks. So I'm kidding. I'm actually more like there. I'm there.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. All right. And Christopher, tell us why are you such a big fan for online?
Yeah, I'm more an introvert, so it's way easier for me to work online instead of physically.
Yay, cool. Yeah, I can empathize with that, although I have to say that I'm an extrovert no matter where I am. Okay, thank you so much. So then virtual is good. We like virtual, that's why we're here. But is it true that when we're in virtual environment, tech makes up for 50% of the experience? So if the tech's bad, the experience bad. Do we agree with that? Agree, disagree? Okay. Yes, we're relying a lot of on the tech. We've got Jan Lucas strongly disagrees. Can you tell us a word? Do you wanna put that into words, Jan Lucas?
Yeah, well, we tested out various portals, and in the end of the day, as long as your learning didactics are not in place, it doesn't matter what the VC is, the portal is, the LMS is, the LXP is. If your didactics around cohort-based learning or life learning is not in place, it doesn't matter what the tech is.
Aha. Okay. So if the tool's awesome, but my design is not, the experience won't be okay. What about the other side? Let's see, Sabrina, you're like way ahead, like you're beyond.
Yeah, I think like also if you have a great design and a great interaction, but the tech is not following, then it's dead. The energy is completely like going down, you know. So for me, it's also a very important element. So I think we agree together with
two sides of the same coin, but
exactly.
You need a balance. You need a good design that is supported and enabled by the right tech for a great experience. Awesome. Last question. There we go. I love your thumbs up. Designing a memorable virtual learning experience is a superpower. Are we all superhumans here? I want to know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Is this a superpower? Yes. All right, Superman and Superwoman, this was what I had prepared for you as a warm-up, and I hope that you got your learning design juices flowing, because I am definitely ready to introduce our guests for today. And I am going to welcome Sabrina in the spotlight first. Hello, Sabrina. Ta-da! Hi. Sabrina is a facilitator and a learning designer for Hyper Island Americas, where she designs and facilitates transformative learning experiences for clients like Nestle, American Express, Santander, Bayer, Kraft Heinz, Heineken, and others, through experiential learning and by putting people at the heart of innovation and transformation. The Hyper Island Way empowers people to rise up to the challenge and become change agents in their organization. Sabrina, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to be today with us. I can't wait to hear all about the Hyper Island Way. Would you mind telling us a couple of more words about yourself and who you are?
Super happy to be here, guys. I mean, I'm French, I'm living in Chile, I've lived in Germany, in Brazil, so I'm citizen of the world, and I'm so happy to see that today, you know, we are so diverse from all countries, so I'm sure it will be like really a great exchange between us. So very happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much. And next, we've got Howard. And there we go. Welcome him into the spotlight. Hey, Howard. He's the founder of Wavetable, a creative studio forging a more engaging future of learning. That's what today is all about. Wavetable works with purpose-driven companies to design and produce unique programs, experiences, and content that's rooted in learning and connection, just like we like it. Now, it's very interesting because Howard's background includes teaching and facilitation work around the world, not a surprise here, but he also brings in 10 years in digital media and entertainment as a producer, event promoter, talent agent, and entrepreneur. Howard, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks. Do I need to say something now?
Only if you want to. My invitation to you is yes. Tell us something more about yourself. Woohoo!
All right. So I'm in Brooklyn, New York. It's like 40 degrees here today, but I'm in a cool room in my workspace. And it's really cold, and I'm in a t-shirt, so I'm like freezing. I'm shivering. So I'm going to do my best to stay warm. What else to share? Yeah, that's what we do. We're quite inspired by weird, diverse inspirations. So film, music. Very inspired by like hospitality and chefs right now. That's like a thing we're thinking about a lot. Like, how do we take interesting ideas from the world of restaurants and apply that to learning? As you said, I have a weird background. A lot of our team are quite weird. We have kind of a very generalist hybrid group of people that work with us to kind of produce interesting learning experiences, from offsites through like leadership development programs. We're doing quite a lot of like summits and conferences and things like that as well at the moment. And yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm going to try and, at least my brain is warm if my body is not. So I'm going to try and warm myself up in this very air-conditioned little room that I'm in. So yeah, happy to be here.
When it's too hot, it's too hot. When it's too cold, it's too cold. Hey, can you tell us something about Edutainment 3.0? Do you want to maybe, I don't know, pop a link of the project in the chat? Just saying, I'm just like, I'm opening a window there for you.
You're very good to me. So
I
yeah,
know.
we have this thing. I don't want to take all the airtime. I'll be really quick. So we have this theory around like edutainment, education plus entertainment, a kind of weird word that has got a lot of stigma. But we discovered that actually there's like a third wave of edutainment emerging, and we created a kind of really crazy deep dive report, which I will just pop in the chat. Hopefully this works. It's a very detailed thing. There's a super quick slide deck version. It's also a really deep dive website. You can explore like 8 trends around the future of edutainment. Brands as neo-educators and companies get in the groove are 2 of those ones, which are pretty quite related to today. So feel free to dive in. Thank you, Anna Maria. You're very good to me.
This needs to come with a warning. It's a warp. It's a black hole for curious minds. So open that at your own risk, and I leave it to that. And now I would like to welcome Saba into the spotlight. He's our 3rd panelist today. Hello, Saba. She believes cultures of innovation begin with a culture of empathy. And I couldn't agree more. Her journey is very interesting. Took her from being a high school teacher to being an education executive at Apple. And today, Saba works with schools to integrate design thinking practices that give young people the mindset and the skills to thrive in the workplace and also as global citizens. She hosts the Designing Schools podcast and is releasing a documentary based on her research about design thinking in summer 2022. And it's summer 2022, Saba. Is this, when is this coming out? Tell us.
It's coming out next month. So we have our launch coming next month.
All right. Awesome. Perfect. Saba, do you want to tell us a couple of words about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really inspired by this community. I'm in education. I work with K-12 and higher ed. And, obviously our students are going into the workforce and, they're going to be the ones in these jobs tomorrow, having to be in these different dynamic environments. And so I work with schools to really kind of bring some of those ideas and ways of working into what can often be very traditional types of environments.
Perfecto. Thank you so much, Saba. Thank you for accepting my invitation to join us today. I also popped Saba, Sabrina's, and Howard LinkedIn's in the chat, so you can stalk them there. This is green light for that, and follow their amazing work. And with no further ado, I am going to move us on to the questions. And this is how it's going to go down. I have a couple of questions prepared. Obviously, I'm very, very curious to pick their brains. I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to chat with them and collaborate with them as part of the Butter community. And I'm going to start with that, but the session today is actually for you, the audience, to have the same opportunity to pick their brain and ask all of your thought-provoking questions, your icks and aches and pains in the chat. And very, very happy to pass the mic over to you as well. So yes, I already see the questions coming in the chat already. So let's get the conversation started. And the first thing that I really like to go straight to the point. I like to go to concrete examples, practical things. And so I am keen to learn of a example, really concrete, of a virtual learning experience that you're most proud of, something that you've put together, put into the world. And what I would like to know is, what was the initial brief, the challenge, like how did it all started and why? How did you conceptualize it? And what have you designed? And I'm going to start with Sabrina.
Thank you, Anna-Maria. Well, as an example, I mean, we are designing a lot of journeys, from like one-day workshop to one-year journey. So like, it's very different kind of format with our clients, but we do also courses. And the big challenge we had at the beginning of the pandemic is like, okay, we are doing a course for agile methodology. which is, really something you have in a room, or you have groups, in every corner of the room. They work in squads, and then they create something, and they do all these rituals of the agile world and so on. And we said, well, okay, now we don't do presential anymore. So how do we switch this experience they have in the room to something remote where they will have fun, where they will connect with each other, because most of the time the people don't know each other when they start a journey with us. And it was really, really a challenge for us. So what we've done is like, okay, how can we transform this presential into like 4 sessions of 2 hours each, and that they can have fun and connect? So we decided to take one example, like making just like in real life. Okay, you will hear a brief from a client. So in that case, I'm doing the client role. So I'm saying, okay, I'm a mother from a child who got stuck in front of the computer for the pandemic, and you guys have to design an interactive map so that the teachers can help the students, these 10 or 12 years old kids, to really get to know the geography, but not only this diversity of the different cultures in the world and so on. So you have to design a map, interactive map. And so that this is really really great that we succeeded finally trying to briefing them on something for 10-15 minutes, like a ritual, okay, let's do the backlog. So you have to list everything you need to do on that project to design that map. How do you do it? And then we send them in breakout, they work in teams, and then they come up. So we are trying to, design the interaction so that alternating between the moment with the theory, explaining what is this ritual, what is this artifact, the moment where they get to work in groups together, and then they come back, and then we go to the next step, and so on. This was really surprising for us to see how much in 2 hours you really get people to do something concrete, and it's as nice as in the presential world. So finally, we were really happy, because when we started testing it, we were not that sure. But with something like Butter, with Miro, for example, has a board where they work together. It was really working pretty well. What was something important in the journey also is to bring some peak moments. So at the end of the 2 hours, they need to present the outcome of their job, what they've created together as a team. And this is really a peak moment where they see that even if they have sprints of 5, 6, 7 minutes, which is really short, they are able to produce something amazing. So then we connect. If you see how much you can do in 7 minutes with people you don't know, these Velcro teams, they don't know each other, and they succeeded to make so great work. So imagine what you can do in your company, in your teams. So trying to make the bridge between the experience in this remote journey and the real context of them in the job. So that was a design that we liked pretty much, and that we are repeating every 2-3 months, and making also this 1%. I think what is important is, you make a design, you make something, but each time you do it, you can always make something better. So this is what brought us some joy in the last 2 years, this journey.
Thank you so much for sharing. I'm looking at Saba, she's laughing. I'm pretty sure she has some great example from education. So Saba, what's your favorite design, something that you've brought to life that you really, really enjoyed?
Yeah, so one trend we're seeing a lot more is people engaging student voice. They want to facilitate student interviews, especially given all the things, especially that students have been through the past couple of years. As they move forward, hearing their voices and integrating that into their strategic plans moving forward. So most of the sessions we did, this is with one particular district, were in person. But they also had some online schools, and they wanted it to be equitable and give everyone a chance to participate. But it was a challenge. It was already a challenge to get students to speak up in person, and so to do it virtually was oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? But one of the things that was really, really, really interesting that emerged was how you build rapport through virtual environments. And with adults, you can do some kind of these different icebreakers, and you can kind of get them talking more. But when you're 5 years old, or to be honest, even when you're 15 years old, right? When they're 5 years old, they just don't really know what to do. When they're 15 years old, they're just completely shut down, and videos are off and all that type of stuff. And so honestly, the flashcard feature was a game changer for us in being able to really kind of speak their language, being comfortable enough, being able to open up, like, it's okay, open up the reaction. It's okay if, you know, there's a loud noise that goes off, like that's part of this dynamic learning environment. And one of the most fascinating things that emerged from that conversation was when we were talking with the high school students, we asked them, you know, like, how come so many of you are using these emojis, but your videos are off? Like, you're not talking, but you're speaking through these like emojis. Like, we want to hear more, you know? And they were like, point blank, well, then teach us. And so it was this very eye-opening moment for, I think, you know, both the people who were listening and also for us as facilitators, that it's true, we don't actually teach remote collaboration. There was just this expectation that as students, you're going to go online and you're just going to know how to do this. And we're just going to take what we were doing, put it online, and then also expect you to be engaged in it. And so that moment where they were like, teach us, was really powerful. And when we acknowledged that, they opened up a little bit more. And so one of the big things that emerged, like, I'll never forget this line. They said, you know, really simple things like muting and unmuting give us anxiety. And I was like, you know what? Me too. Like, if you think about it, every time you go to mute or unmute, you're like, oh, is somebody else going to speak? Am I too late? Am I going to get there in time to say my word? And then it is a lot of times people speak at the same time and it's like, oh God, sorry, you go first, or you go first. And so as an adult, we deal with that, but sometimes I think there's a lot of things we're dealing with in the remote space that we're not even able to articulate because we're just so busy going through the motions. And so I would say that working that one particular experience was so powerful because they were vulnerable enough to be like, well, one, teach us. And number two, like, it's these subtle things that give us anxiety that I think as designers on our end, we have to be so cognizant of in how we create those experiences and the environments that are there. But the idea that you could really build such a strong rapport through something like flashcards was just like it was an incredible moment.
Thank you so much for sharing, Saba. And have you tried to this mic muting, unmuting, and so on? Has the queue helped you with that? Have you received any feedback that the feature totally is useful for that? Yeah.
Yeah, I totally forgot to mention that. So basically, when they said that, we were able to show them the queue. And it actually wasn't something we had been using. It was kind of like, it was a bit of a smaller group. So we were just like, speak as you want. And it was actually when we showed them the queue feature, that's what got them to engage a little bit more. Because then we started seeing the little line come up. But yeah, no, absolutely. That was a huge moment.
Right. Thank you so much, Saba, for sharing. And Howard, I'm curious if you're bringing, the spices from all the chefs and the tunes from all the DJs. What's the best experience that you've ever designed? Tell us about it.
Just make sure I'm unmuted because I'm nervous about unmuting as well. All right, I'm in. Something in the chat that came up a minute ago. Curious about a recent virtual learning experience that didn't go as well as you hoped. So every single one ever, I'll tell you that right now. So look, I'm maybe like a bit grumpy, but I am an optimist, and I think living in like the realm between reality and expectations, like most of us are living in that space somewhere. So I'd say nothing goes as well as hope ever, but it could always be better, but that's like part of the game, and that's part of the infinite journey, I suppose. So I can tell you separately about ones that have been a disaster. I'm happy to talk about those, but I can tell you about one that we're doing at the moment, actually, which is for a restaurant company. It's not really a learning journey; it's a meeting, but it's every week, and it's 70 leaders. And if you imagine 70 people for an hour, that's very valuable time. So how do we make a 1 hour call to exchange information really good? And it's currently on Zoom. But it's really inefficient. So and I'm not saying this just because we're here, but we've decided to use Butter for it. You may have heard of the platform. It's great. That's the sales. There we go. Thank you. And so what we've been doing is where we came at it from was like, okay, how could we give them a menu? So we're like, could we offer them like a builder, like a menu builder of like different calls and different types of calls? And thank you, Eric, sending me my check in the mail, and I appreciate the British spelling of check. I respect that very. Thank you for the acknowledgement. We're building like a bunch of different agendas, like a menu builder. So like you go to a restaurant and you could order like a different bits of the menu. We're creating the call like a menu where you can create different components. We've created like loads of different tools and blocks and different agendas, and are rolling that out. Actually, I've got a call with them straight after this, and they're piloting it tomorrow. So this is happening like right now. The thing with this call that's maybe interesting for this group is we realized the ingredients of their call need to be three things. One is information. Could be like health and super important health and safety stuff or financial stuff. They need to be able to transmit information in an important way. They want to find space for development of leaders together, which wasn't really happening before. And thirdly, vibes. How do you create peer learning between people who are super busy running restaurants and they're often like on their phone and they've got other stuff going on? So how do you have all three of those within one 45-minute call? So we've designed it like that. They've got a team of 4 that are going to be their production team, one main facilitator, and then we've actually renamed the co-facilitator a producer. It's more like a TV show. The producer is there in the background, like designing the thing and like queuing up stuff and bringing in different speakers, queuing up different tools, all that good stuff. So that's how we're thinking about it. We're piloting it tomorrow. It's ostensibly a meeting, but actually it's a learning space. So how do you get 70 people every single week to be like learning stuff and also transmitting information, making sure they check all the boxes, but also share the struggles and the pain points of running a restaurant in a very difficult economic climate. So that's something we're working on that we're really excited about, and that's going live. The pilot is tomorrow. So I'll let you know how it goes. There you go. That's mine.
It will go wonderful, I'm sure. Howard, drop us a message and tell us, take some screenshots, capture the experience.
I will.
All right. Thanks everyone for your questions in the chat. Feel free to pop your curiosities and everything that you would like to ask Howard, Sabrina, and Saba. And I'm going to already start picking up some of the questions. So Howard, I think he answered a bit Michaela's question about an experience that didn't go as well as hoped. Sabrina and Saba, do you have like a nightmare story that you somehow managed to turn around, and how did that go? Like any example that you have for us of a bad situation that you managed to somehow survive, right? We kind of like, we always survive them, although we think we don't.
But bad, we had a lot of, and I would say we would not even like manage it. Like, different companies have different cultures. And sometimes you face like a team of leaders from one company, they all get their video closed, shut down. They don't speak. You ask questions, they don't participate. It's super hard to have them really like engaged. And I really see a difference between companies' culture. And unfortunately, these kind of calls we had on Zoom, so we didn't have so many options as we have in Butter now, to engage, to make the things more fun, more light. So it was not that easy. But I think we've learned also from these kind of experiences, and perhaps now we set the expectations better at the beginning of the session. To say like, guys, we want you to have the camera open. We know that you are tired. We know that after 2 years of pandemic, you don't want to see your image anymore and so on. But yeah, we try to set the expectations better and try to make it fun also in the beginning, and insist that it's not for us. They are not opening the camera and participating for us, but also between them as a place of learning, that this is an investment for them personally. So yeah, that's how we do. But yeah, we had some pretty bad experiences in the last 2 years. And we will still have, yeah, that's life. How Howard was saying, it's like, you can always do better.
I would agree with that. I would also say that it was really interesting. Those early experiences where things went bad, though, actually had a really positive effect in that people saw that you were struggling too. Because I think a lot of times when you come in as the presenter and the facilitator, people think that like you have it all figured out. And so I remember I did one. I had 200 members of a school district. It was their entire leadership team came together once a month on a Friday. And I had this activity plan for them that we were going to do at the end. And, like Sabrina mentioned, this was like before Butter. This was like in the early days with Zoom. And it was like we had to share a link, and the person hadn't enabled breakouts. And so like there was nothing they could do in that moment because they were such a large organization. They couldn't call their IT and fix it in that moment. And so literally last like half an hour, like I had built it up where I was going to share it. And then we were going to go into this activity, and I had done all this stuff and created the documents and done all of that. We had this mural board. It was great. And it didn't work. And I literally had to pivot like on the spot. But that moment was their favorite moment in the feedback. Everybody commented like, oh, it was so nice to see that that happened to somebody else too. So that humanizing, I think, the process is what comes honestly from when things go bad. So even when things go bad, sometimes I'm like, maybe I should make something go bad just to get that element in there because people really enjoy it. But I think, you know, again, like I said earlier, being more cognizant of these little elements that in real life you just nail because you're so familiar with the process when you're designing for things online. Even, you know, like Sabrina, you mentioned as well, that pre-factor, like getting people comfortable even getting on there so that when we're on there, we can begin. That onboarding, I don't know, that's still one that I really struggle with because to your point, it totally depends on a team's culture and all that type of stuff. But the onboarding, it's a hard one still, I think.
And then I would come back to the flashcards. I think the flashcards, they are fantastic because we also started to use them. And that's really like, I don't know, this giving another mood when we are starting, another way to explaining also the technology, because someone was asking also, I think someone put in the chat, how do you do virtual experiences for more senior management? And this is a challenge because we had some teams, like not because they are senior, but because they are older people also, they are not so at ease and comfortable with the technology. And when they get into an environment that they don't know about, I mean, Zoom for them was already a challenge. So when you come with other tools like Butter and Miro, they are just freaking out. So I think also this flashcard, this thing like, you know, to make people comfortable and to get them on board with the tool, I think you are losing a time on your session, but finally you are not really losing time because it's very important to get people comfortable with the tools before you move to the real content and that thing. So I think like senior management needs that sometimes, but connecting with the profile of people. For us in Hyper Island, we don't treat senior managers as different from like analysts or people, you know, we try to mix everyone because this makes also the journey like more, better, people learning from each other. And we just make fun and these kind of things, whatever the level of the people. I mean, you know, we throw things with cats and dogs and these funny things, whatever the level of the group, because we think that this is what makes the learning lighter and more engaging. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I would like to stay a little with these examples or these thoughts of onboarding new people to the tools that we're using, which is the additional struggle that we have in the virtual environment that we don't have in a room, right? People know how to use a chair, a table, a pen, a paper, a flip chart, a Post-it, right? So now we're coming in with all the tools, the things that are moving that you have to click. There's a fierce battle for your attention. So I take it, and from what I hear from you, you're using the beginning of the session, use flashcards, etc., to try to onboard your participants. And I wonder if there are any best practices of things you could do even prior to the learning experience, whether that's a workshop, a cohort-based course, an event, whatever that is. Have you tried, tested methods, small things to prepare them even prior to that? And is that working? Because I tried it myself and still found out that people lack the time to do the prep work, right? So they showed up still not knowing how to use the tool. So I'm keen to hear some of your thoughts on that and potential best practices.
I mean, no, I show me a workshop where everyone's done the pre-work. Like never, ever, like ever. Come on, like it just doesn't happen. Which is one of my like going back to worst things I've built, making the assumption that everyone cared and that everyone was open to change. You can't, like, as the designer of the thing, we care. you can't assume everyone cares as much. They're busy, they got other stuff going on, or they're just not that interested. So yeah, the pre-read, it helps, but I've got into trouble numerous times where I've showed up thinking, oh, I sent everyone the pre-read or like a pre-workshop thing, and that means everyone knows what's going on. So the kind of scaffold for like where people are coming in at, that is a big part. I don't know if this gets to your question, but like that's a big part of the design for us. It's like we can't assume anything. So even where people are showing up from, we have to design like 5 different levels of where they're coming in at, and then you got to try and get everyone to the same place even when you start. So like that is a significant, and it's frustrating because it's not like the work, it's not the learning or the valuable, so it's just getting people into the room at the same point. That's a trap that's really easy to fall into, and you have to design really carefully for that, because yeah, making the assumption that everyone cares as much as you, probably in life honestly as well, it's a really easy assumption to make.
I think that's so true. And, you know, I hate to sound like a Butter fangirl nonstop, but that ability to share something on your screen, you know, we equated a lot like in the classroom, like what are your transitions, right? I mean, this is any learning experience. How are you transitioning people from one experience to the next without losing that momentum, right? So even in the classroom, when we used to use technology, like when you used to have to tell students, you open the app, you're losing people in that moment. And so when technology came about, whereas the teacher, I could open up the app on all the devices, now I've got this flawless experience going. And so I really felt the same way in Butter as well. Before, I used to have to depend on people being able to open Mural themselves, people managing multiple screens or multiple windows when I know they have 10,000 other tabs as well open. So the fact that I can keep everybody in one space means that, you know, it reminded me of your poll question earlier, like how much is the tech involved? The tech is heavily involved. We're all tech when we're in these spaces, but how intrusive the tech is different. And I feel like when you have to bounce people from one place to another, to another, to another, your tech is intrusive. You're now taking away. But when I can keep everyone in the same space, and I can have a window like we did today, where I can have you stamping on a flashcard, talking in a chat, but also sharing a GIF, like I'm now opening up learning to meet you where you're at without it being intrusive. And so that's something I really look for now in any technology that I adopt in any session, is how intrusive is this technology going to be to the experience?
This creates the perfect segue, Saba, to Jan's question in the chat. And he talks about LMSs and LXP, learning management system, learning experience platforms, right? We know that a lot of companies are using these platforms to store their e-learning, to store the general learning if you want to. And that's kind of like a big deal in a lot of companies. And so they're considering ditching their LMS and their LXP and any type of platform, because they feel that they do not create that environment for learning to happen, right? So it creates that friction, and it gets in the way, exactly what Saba was talking about. So what they're considering is a learning map in Miro using Butter. Any opinions, any thoughts, any ideas on that?
I mean, we're reviewing LMSs and LXPs at the moment for a couple of people we work with. I mean, most of them are just unbelievably bad. I'm shocked. They're so bad. Like the tech is hideous. It's incredibly rigid, and even companies that are pitching themselves as being like really like future thinking, it's like, man, this is built on like PHP from 2008, and like I don't know, like we're just boggled by. I may as well like weave this together myself. Like we could actually do it in like a sort of hack together, like Notion plus Miro plus some other stuff, and Google Docs would be like better as an experience. So I am yet, if someone wants to send me the learning platform that is not built for industrialized, rigid, adhere to the rules, mass learning, mass education rather than learning. That's a different thing. Education is done to you. Learning is something that is a verb. If someone can send that to me, please do, and I will send Eric's check that he sent to me to you as a reward, because I have not found it yet. Most of them are awful. So please send me the one that if you know of something. So to answer your question, yes, we'd love to do that. We're thinking, I just put in the chat to Jan, we're actually looking at, like, it feels risky to do a kind of like hack together solution, but I think it'll probably work better, honestly. So I have some strong opinions on this, as you can tell. So I'll pause there. But yeah, I think most of them are awful, honestly. It's a good opportunity for some good startups.
And then I would make the question to Anna Maria. You don't want Butter to move to LMS because I'm sure you could do really great things. So perhaps it's a place for you to build something new.
Hey, we never know. Cheska's here. We're taking this to the team, and maybe Jacob is going to be like, "We're pivoting, folks." Who knows? There's definitely some opportunity there, because I feel that we're sharing the same feelings about LMSs and LXPs. No one ever said, "I love my LMS." So yeah. Any other thoughts on the Miro Butter combination? Going scrappy, patching things together, is it yay or nay? I'm curious if Sabrina and Saba have a different opinion there and are keen to fight hard.
No, I think like in everything we do, we need to test. It's just like, you want to try something new, get out of the LMS, just try it. Just like build a prototype, make this Miro Butter stuff, test with 5 people, 10 perhaps, get that feedback, and then see if it's better. And if it's better, just move forward. And then 1% each week, each month, you can move and improve things. And yeah.
Yeah, we've found, actually, similarly, like the prototyping thing, we found that seems to be a good way of approaching stuff. Because look, if you're over 25, you're incredibly resistant to change. Like, all of us are in different ways. Like, most adults are incredibly resistant. Whether you want to admit it or not, you're probably incredibly resistant to change. And that can calcify more in like different kind of cultures, different organizations, different levels of seniority, whatever. So going and like, hey, we're going to go and move on to this new solution, and it's baked and it's done and you've got to use it, the resistance is going to be incredibly strong. So we found that like the prototyping thing to get people like a little bit more comfortable is a much better way of doing it. I wish I still thought like to get to sort of what Saba does, I wish I still thought like a 9-year-old. I really try to, but I can't. I have an 11-month-old son. I wish I was able to be as responsive to change as he is, but I'm not. And so I think the prototyping thing is definitely a good way of like approaching this stuff, rather than like, hey, we're doing a completely new thing as of now and you've got to go with it. People they'll put their defenses up. So we found prototyping is a good way of tackling this stuff.
Or is curious. I've got a nephew who's 3.5, and like he's just open and curious, and just the way his eyes look at the world are so different than the way, you know, most adults would look at the world. But I would add one layer to that, and I would say that one of the things we found is more than age, it's vision. I think these days in particular, and, you know, I can't speak for like everyone's fields, but I can speak for education and say that people have had one tool after another thrown at them. People have had one change after another thrown at them without a solid vision for why. And so I think that's why we've seen, like, I was reading an article yesterday by The Atlantic, and he was talking about how like you can't build trust in remote scenarios. And I was like, wait a minute, like, my best professional relationships were all built online first. Like, some of my best professional relationships, I mean, even if I just think about this scenario today, being here invited by Anna Maria, I've never met her, and I don't foresee really meeting you anytime soon. Yet some of my best professional relationships have been built online. Places that have advocated for me, that have brought me to keynotes, to sessions, to so many other things. And so I think one of the things that, again, we could get away with more in, you know, real life that you can't really get away with online is really establishing your core values. You know, as an organization, what are your values, and how are your values showing up in your behavior? You know, but yesterday it was enough to get up in front of a team meeting and people, you know, in your lunchroom or wherever you were, and say, yeah, we believe in empathy, and yeah, we believe in this. Now everyone back to their desks. You can't do that in a remote space, because you get called out a lot faster because it shows up. There's so much more transparency. And so I think more than the technology, I go back to the fact that, people really have to lean into their core values. How are you showing and, demonstrating those core values on a day-to-day basis? And then, and how are you building that trust and autonomy? Are people building with you, or are you building for them? And so a lot of times, even though an organization will bring us in to say, hey, we want to do these interviews here, with students, or we want you to do a design thinking workshop, a lot of times it's like we need to take a step back, and there's all these other layers that we get to work with you on, whether it's psychological safety, whether it's building trust, whether it's thinking about your values and how they're showing up before we can actually even get to that work, so that you can get the outcome that you're hoping for. So I think people are just calling people out more for things that they don't appreciate in their workplaces.
Thank you. I'm going to actually plug one of my questions here, and then we're moving on to Dora's question from the chat, which is the one remaining, because we design learning experiences for different reasons, right? And sometimes we design them for awareness, and sometimes we design them for skills improvement, and very often, and that's kind of like the holy grail of, and the reason why we do learning is because we want to see a change. So we want our participants to have a behavioral change through the interventions that we're designing for them. And I find personally that is the hardest part in learning experience design. And so I'm curious to know if you have any tips or tricks, tested methods, concrete ways that you are going very purposefully in your learning design and design for some level. It doesn't have to, be life-changing, some level of behavior change after the intervention. Howard, I see you're keen to speak.
Am I? Okay, I can be. I am now.
Yeah, there we go.
I'm keen. I'm ready. I'm keen. Incentives. Look, everyone's selfish. Like everyone is. Like you can be the most socially minded person in the world. You're still thinking about what's in it for me. And I think particularly at work, and I imagine most of the stuff we're talking about here is sort of related to like our work, whatever we do. I think the what's in it for me question is like really easy to overlook. Just had a call with one of my team about this. We were talking about a thing we did yesterday. It's like went well, but like something didn't quite hit. We did like an hour sort of meta training thing for a client, and it was like it was great, but something didn't quite hit, and we realized it's like we probably didn't really make it clear at the beginning. Why should you care? Like, what's in it for you as it pertains to your actual day-to-day when you're busy with life and your boss and your spouse and trying to think about going to an airport and getting through security in one piece. I don't know, whatever's going on in your life. So I think the what's in it for me matters. And I think also to get to that, sometimes you have to ladder against fear of loss. People are more averse to loss than the potential of winning. So it actually needs to be like avoidance of mistakes. Bad things could happen potentially if you don't do this. So as much as that feels a bit negative, people are generally more like scared of loss than they are the potential of winning. So we're spending quite a lot of time thinking about how do we design for incentives for people, particularly given their current situations, I suppose. So that's something that's like we're really thinking about a lot at the moment, and that does seem to land well when we do that well. It's noticeably different to when we don't.
For us, I would say, like as Howard was explaining, like giving this reason why is super important, but in the concrete way of doing, we try to to bring them to experiential learning. Like always, any content, any concept, we always get them to do things. Because if we want to see a change in the behavior of people, they need to do the first step. So we have a very strong bias for action that we bring, for example, in leadership course, and you want to have them like talk about feedback. Okay, so we'll send you in breakout and you do like a 5 minutes feedback in double, like 2 people together in duo. Or you have an activity to do after the session. So from one session to another, you have a kind of weekly challenge, and you need to do something in your real world, in your own context. So feedback, you need to ask for feedback to someone. And then you come back the next week and then you ask feedback, this got you an insight, and you reflect on it. So we always try to, have this circle, we call it like a virtuous circle. Is like, you have to understand the concept, you need to apply it for real in your own context. Then you need to reflect on it, what have you learned? And then you can apply it in your own life and so on and so on. So for us, would be like this bias for action. Let's have people do things instead of just talking and listening and turning to that they are protagonists. Yeah, sorry, Saba.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say, I'm gonna drop a question in the chat that I use to like key that up. So like, yeah, I don't have anything to add, but I'm just gonna drop that in the chat for people.
Cool.
All right. And sitting in this realm, because I think I mentioned we're designing sometimes experience for the purpose of raising awareness. Do any of you have ever designed something for the sole purpose of raising awareness, of maybe shifting some mental models, getting some wheels turning? The purpose wasn't necessarily to create a big behavioral change. It was just a mind shift change. Any example for Sam? Of awareness learning experience.
Using contrast. I don't know if this gets to your question, but that was my instinct would be, you're trying to raise awareness of a thing, the contrast of what is versus what might be, or what could be if it doesn't. And it kind of gets back to the loss aversion thing a little bit. So I use like we see it in storytelling all the time, right? So the Matrix, red pill, blue pill, is contrast. The contrast between the two, the what could be and the what currently is. So I'd find some way of like illustrating that. That's where my instinct would be, to like build awareness of a thing, and like by showing the contrast of how it is different to the status quo or the other option. I hope that's sort of helpful.
Do we mean awareness of a problem or awareness of a tool, or just in general?
Awareness of a problem, I would say, in this case, of a problem, of something that exists and we're probably unaware of. So we have to bring attention to it, right? Guide their attention to that thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we do that every day, because any school you walk into will tell you they're creative, creating global citizens, doing X, Z, and all the things. And if you ask them, well, okay, let's take a step back. Like, what does that look like in second grade? What does that look like in 10th grade? What does that look like in 11th grade? I think you have to be patient. Like, I'd say that's the biggest thing that works, is being patient, but also compassionate enough, and really striking that balance in your facilitation to ask the hard questions, but let them come up with the answers through the examples. And because they'll realize themselves, I mean, that's what they want. And so in just the day-to-day, like sometimes you just don't always realize like what you have and what you don't have. And so when they sit there and they say like, oh yeah, okay, well, yeah, I guess we're kind of at a 2. How do we get to a 5? The people who are at a 5, how do they get to an 8? And then that's kind of where the work begins. But I find that a lot of people, like I hear this a lot when I do, when I'm in a presentation, people will just be like, oh, I have so much to share with you and I have so much to get through and I have to like all these slides that I need to share. And I think we leave little time for reflection for people. But if you flip it and you give them more time to speak, and you're really helping pull and document those threads for them, sometimes that's even it. They just don't even have time to sit and document it because they're the one always leading everything. That can really, really help people just see where the gaps are.
Thank you. We're closing on the peak of the hour, but I do want to come back to Dora's question and see if you have some quick tips for her. The question is how to design more practical field experiments. So Dora, if you are still with us, if you have a concrete example, maybe we can be more of use. Practical learning experiences that are happening in real life.
So I hope, hi everyone, so I hope you can hear me. So
Yes.
for example, so I'm also responsible for leadership programs, and for me it's always, I would like to provide them a kind of field experiment or put the knowledge and everything in practice. But sometimes for me, it's a kind of real struggle that sometimes they don't go back, they don't use it, they don't make it. So for me, it would be really great how I'm able to design something which I really think that, okay, they dedicate time to complete this task as well. So for example, after a kind of a session of feedback, they also receive a kind of task that they have to manage for the next week. Some of them are coming back, yes, I did, but some of them, no, I didn't have time. Just like, yeah. So I would like to increase this level who complete this kind of field experiment task or provide them a kind of case studies where they really would like to, or a kind of group exercise that they are really use what they have learned.
Two things perhaps that can help you. I would say it's like this buddy system when you put people together and they have to make this compromise, say, oh, I will do that in front of somebody else. Normally, they are more entitled to really do it afterwards. So this helps sometimes, to have another peer and they exchange together on that. So would help them to do it. And then something else would be like gamification. That could be also sometimes that works.
Yes.
That, they gain some points and it can be perhaps a bit funny and help them be more motivated to do the things, the challenges you give them. That would be two ideas.
Saba is saying goodbye. We just want to say goodbye to Saba. Thank you so much for being with us, Saba. She has another call now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I can offer a couple of quick things. One, make it smaller.
Yes,
so like maybe it's too big.
No, it's already small.
Okay, make it smaller.
Okay.
Make it like seriously. Like try that. Make it like ridiculously easy. That's one thing. And then make it really small and then make it a stretch above that. So here's the super simple version. If you want to which is kind of gamification. If you want to stretch, here's one or two stretches. And some people will go all the way to the last stretch, but maybe make it like super small. The buddy thing I definitely agree with. You could also offer like office hours, which could be like hey, if you want to book a slot on my calendar with me one-to-one to talk through it before next week, here's my calendar, just book a 20-minute slot. That's another way of doing it. And I think also, God, I don't want to sound, I feel like I've come off really like miserable today. I'm sorry. Maybe it's because I'm shivering. Some people just won't do it.
Yes,
and
I have to accept that.
We can't force people. I know it's I find it devastating often when, it's not that's expectations versus reality again, and sitting in that middle is really hard. So sometimes it just won't happen. But yeah, I would say Sabrina's suggestion of the buddy thing, definitely good idea. And then maybe try and add some like stretch goals as well, but then reverse engineer it by making the first thing super small, or get them to do some of the stuff in the live session, so then it's easier for them to get them to half do it in the live session, and then all they'll do is put the finishing touches on. I think it's a design question. I hope that's kind of helpful.
Yes.
And I find it's a very good conclusion for these hours. We cannot get on board 100% of people, and we need to be humble about that. We need to make the greatest learning experience for perhaps 80%, 90% of people, but there will be always some of them that are not getting on the train, and that's okay. I mean, there is protagonism also, people, they learn for themselves, they don't learn for us. So we need to accept that and be humble.
How easy would it be if we could just pour things into people's brains and they could stay there passively without having to do anything, and the world would be a better place, right? Thank you so much, Sabrina and Howard and everyone that joined us today. Thank you for your wonderful questions. Thank you for your great examples. I'm going to open a poll because, hey, learning design, let's close with a quick reflection. What is that one thing you're going to take away with you and start experimenting with tomorrow? And with this, I leave you off to go. I'm just curious to see your, what's your insight, those light bulbs moments. Type them in the poll. Learning is a journey. It's not an event. That's definitely definitely too. Lifelong, for that matter. All right, another layer of clothing. Okay, make it smaller. Body system after the session. Be clear on the what's in it for me part. Are you the layer of clothing, Howard?
Guilty.
Guilty as charged. Learning is a verb. I'm going to heart that. I love it. The what's in it for me isn't always obvious. My first time using Butter, so for me it is prototypes with small groups. No reason to not try something new. Yes. What's in it for me? Perspective from participants. All right. Love. Engage, engage, engage. All right. Thank you, everyone. It was an absolute pleasure to be with you today. And I hope to see you all very, very soon in one of our future sessions.
Thank you, Anna Maria. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day.